Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, for episode 4 of Project Fairlady. Everything's been going along quite smoothly here with the project. Still at the point of doing fairly basic sort of repair stuff at the moment. No real glory stuff, you know, putting new parts in and all that sort of thing yet. Really just trying to undo the sins of many previous owners and workshops that have been perpetrated on this poor Japanese sports car. So without further ado, folks, I'll get this thing up on the hoist. We'll have a bit of a look at a couple of things. Now folks, this is just something I noticed in passing the other day. I was sort of walking through under here and I thought, gee, those front boots look a bit shit on the steering rack there. I'll have a bit of a closer look at these. And the reason being is both tie rod ends on the end of the rack have recently been replaced. They were done at the same time as the Highcast Elite was done by the same monkeys who did the battery box relocation and all that sort of stuff. Both sides have been done, as you can see. But what I did notice was that the boots on the rack were a little bit torn up on the ends, and I thought, well, God knows what they're going to be like. So I sort of opened it up a bit and had a bit of a look inside, and I just thought, oh, bugger me, have a go at that. So I cut both the boots off, and this is what I found, folks. So how friggin' horrid and manky is that? And that, folks, is why your rack ends wear out. That's a collection of grease and grit that just constantly gets moved around on that joint just through general driving of the vehicle. One on this side is not quite as bad, but it's still got a lot of grit in there. It's more sort of oily. I think the rack might be leaking a bit on this end, so I've basically ordered a full rack service kit for this thing. Anyway, folks, that was just something I noticed in passing. Now, on to the real thing I want to show you. So I just found a little rust repair that I need to do, folks. I was just going over the underneath of the car in a few areas, just cleaning off some surface rust. Because I've been putting rust converter and going over it with a bit of Por 15. And I found this. There was just a couple of little lumps there. It looked like it was just lumps of underbody sealer or just a couple of little lumps there, but it turns out it was our old friend, Mr. Rust. So, there it is back there. That's where she's located. Bottom of the rear guard. The other side's okay. It's just this one. So, what I'll do, folks, I'll cut this section out here. And I'll make up a new piece, and then I'll just TIG a new piece in there, and then I can move on to something else. So if you're keen, just hang around and see what happens. And that's what it looks like now, folks, after a bit of a clean up. That's pretty much ready to go. All I've got to do with it now is spray it with a bit of rust converter, and it should be right to sort of start the repair work on. So what I'll generally do, folks, with a piece that's like this, I'll just get a bit of sort of fairly thin, stiff cardboard, and I'll make up a template. Like you've seen me make plenty of templates up before with things. So basically, make up your template and just kind of squash it in there. Just get a piece of cardboard and just push it over the top of it and push it in really tight, roughly where you think it's got to go, and squash it in really hard, and you'll see the edges will actually make an imprint on the piece as you kind of do it. And what I also do, folks, is I'll compare it to an existing piece on the other side. If you have like a mirror reverse piece for the other side that you can actually look at and get more of an idea what the finished shape's meant to be, because obviously this was pretty cactus and pretty mangled when it came out. There wasn't really much that you could use to sort of compare with. So just sort of work on your piece, you know. You can see like I've done here, I've marked fold lines and, oh, hello, marked fold lines and things like that on it, so you sort of get to really get the shape sort of sussed out. And then from there, folks, all you need to do is just trace around it on a piece of body steel and cut it out. I just generally use a little grinder depending what it is, and then just sort of start shaping it. And you'll find that if your cardboard shaped properly into the piece, if it's something that's got a little bit of shape to it like this, then you won't find yourself short in an area which you would if you just started off with a flat piece. Give yourself a bit of excess in places, you know, like for example on this, give yourself a bit of excess out that way and a bit of excess down the bottom. I've trimmed this off roughly because it's roughly where I need it to be right now. It's pretty much the perfect shape. And then once you've done this, as I say, transfer it onto a bit of body steel, and then you'll end up with something like this, folks. This is a direct piece that I've made off that template. It has had a bit of trimming and a bit of hammering and everything to make it fit, but you can see that guy will go in there like that, and that is a pretty damn nice fit. I've got a little tiny piece here that I need to make up and put in once I get this welded in. That wasn't able to sort of stay in that piece because when it curved, I either had to try and beat it out or just kind of snip it out and then just put another piece in, which is what I chose to do. But as you can see, I'll just get the TIG out and I'll just TIG this in, and then you know, give it a hit on the inside with some seam sealer and some epoxy primer and stuff like that, and it should be bloody good to go, folks. And I'll refix the bracket for the rear bar onto it, and you can see it's a pretty good thing. All easy stuff to do, folks. You just need to spend a little bit of time working with some hand tools, you know, a few hammers, some snips, a bit of a grinder. It's all just common sense kind of stuff, folks, you know, nothing hard about it, but it is a little bit on the tedious side, but there's certainly no voodoo involved in doing it. From a cardboard template to a piece of steel, put it in, whack a couple of welds on it. You don't have to TIG it if you've got a MIG welder, just friggin' MIG welder on. That's what panel shops generally do. They tend to be pretty dab hands with the old MIG, and you know, you got yourself a perfect rust repair. And while I've been doing a bit of this, folks, I've done a couple of other things. So I'll just pull the car back down and I'll show you a couple of the other things that I've been doing, all along the same lines. So one of my pet hates, folks, with the Z32 model is the fact that they have this bloody telescoping whip antenna on them, which I just can't stand them. So I'm getting rid of this. If you're a purist, you'd probably be cursing me now going, "Oh, Trevor, how can you do that? You're making the car not original." Well, I don't really care. I never listen to the radio anyway, folks. The thing's going to have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and all that sort of stuff fitted to it anyway. And if I want to, if I'm really desperate to listen to the radio, I could always mount a really tiny kind of a shark fin antenna between the target tops and the hatch that'll barely be even noticeable, you know. But I really won't do that unless I absolutely kind of have to, if Mrs. Aussie Shed insists, in other words. So what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm going to, as they say, shave it, Brazilian style. So I've made up a patch piece for it here, folks. So while I'm welding up that piece down the bottom, I'm just going to TIG this little cover plate on around here. So if anyone really desperately wants to, if I ever get rid of the vehicle, which I'll probably take this thing to the grave with me, you can always just untack it and then remove the piece, and then you'll be able to sort of restore it back to original. Otherwise, I'd cut this right out and put this piece in, but I'll leave this. I can get to it pretty easy from the back, so I'll be able to put some sort of seam sealer and rust proof and stuff on the back of it, so it won't create any sort of a problem. There's also the matter of this rust repair on the end of the spoiler that needs doing. You can see I've got it marked out there for a cutout. I'm going to try and kill two birds with one stone, folks. I'm going to get rid of this mount for the spoiler as well, because I am actually going to work my way around and fill up all of these, but I don't think I'll weld them up. I think I'll probably just use urethane. I'll probably bond something on the back with urethane and then just fill them, just because this is all underneath the spoiler. But since I have to repair this anyway, I might as well just take this all out in one piece and, you know, just weld a plate in there that'll cover up both of those. You can see the corrosion goes back a bit here. I knocked all the paint off here with a flat wheel, and it didn't really look like the corrosion was going back further, but it's always a good idea with this sort of stuff, folks. Just keep going and keep going with your flat wheel until you actually get a really nice clean surface. And I've left that just to show you what it looks like beforehand, so I'll just cut that out probably with a Dremel, make up a new piece like you've seen me do on these other pieces now, and then TIG it in, and we'll get it all nice and smooth, file it all flat and everything, and then just finish it off with a bit of body filler when the time comes to do all the body work. Another thing I'm doing, folks, so this is the hole for the rear wiper mount, which I'm going to delete. You can buy wiper delete kits online from Z1 and places like that, and they have a disc that goes in with a rubber grommet and seals up from underneath and everything. And that's all well and good, but since the car is going to be repainted and all this bodywork needs to be done anyhow, I'm going to actually do it properly and weld that up. So once again, folks, I've got a little disc that I've made up just out of body steel. I'll just whack her onto a little bit of a magnet, and that'll just go in there like so. That just sits in nice and perfectly there, and then I'll just TIG around it, file it off, seal it up with a bit of epoxy primer, and once again leave it until we then start on the major body work. So that's where I'm at the moment, folks. I'll get a bit of rust converter on that piece down the bottom, and then I'll start jigging these pieces in place, and then we'll get the camera back on again. There you have it, folks. The only one I didn't film was the wiper delete, but it's the same as, you know, that repair and the bloody antenna hole and the rust repair on the bottom. It all turned out pretty good, pretty happy with it all. Another group of things off the list, on the long list of things to do and undo on this vehicle. So I think we'll leave this one here, folks. Next week there's a whole heap of different stuff coming up. More just tearing stuff down and, you know, removing bits and pieces, but different kind of stuff. So as always, folks, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Bloody pleasure to have you here. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've been watching this series or any of my other videos and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now. As always, folks, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.